I want to talk to you about Merrick Garland. Merrick is the guy that everybody will remember. He was the judge that the Republicans refused to confirm. And that was what the whole Supreme Court thing was about, they say. They also said that he's not a guy that would have a problem with the Second Amendment. The conservatives are freaking out. This is a very moderate guy. Okay, let's forget about what he said and what was happening with the Supreme Court for the moment. I'm going to tell you that there is a reason he was selected as the Attorney General. Merrick Garland was selected because he is, we are going to see, you know how we've been seeing a replay of the 1960s? We're now going to start seeing a replay of the 1990s. And the 1990s, if you remember right, as soon as Oklahoma City happened, what did they do? They not only got the bad guys, but what else did they do? Within 24 hours, Bill Clinton was talking about Rush Limbaugh and talk radio and trying to get that off the air. Well, we've had our Oklahoma City bombing now. It's January 6th. And Merrick Garland said yesterday that this was worse. What happened on January 6th was worse than what happened in Oklahoma City in the 1990s. Let me explain who he is and what his background is and where he's going if confirmed. Merrick yesterday said that he was going to vow to prosecute white supremacists. Listen to this.
150 years after the department's founding, battling extremist attacks on our democratic institutions also remains central to the department's mission. From 1995 to 1997, I supervised the prosecution of the perpetrators of the bombing of the Oklahoma City Federal Building, who sought to spark a revolution that would topple the federal government. If confirmed, I will supervise the prosecution of white supremacists and others who stormed the Capitol on January 6th, a heinous attack that sought to disrupt a cornerstone of our democracy, the peaceful transfer of power to a newly elected government. And that critical work is but a part of the broad scope of the department's responsibilities.
This is why he was selected. He was selected because of his work in Oklahoma City and the Unabomber. He has a lifelong pattern of going after extremists, which I am for. I was glad we caught the Unabomber, really glad we caught him, but he wasn't a right-wing extremist. He was a technophobe. He was warning against technology that would take over everyone's life. Even a stopped clock can be right twice a day. But he wasn't a right-wing and white supremacist. When it comes to Timothy McVeigh was starting a revolution, and he was trying to topple the American government. He was saying that the IRS was growing too big, the government was growing too big, they were spying on their people, et cetera, et cetera. Stopped clock. But both of them were violent. That's what made them extremists. Their violence. They thought it was better to blow people up. There's no difference between them and John Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes Booth wanted to kill President Lincoln because of his hatred of the North, his hatred of blacks, his hatred of the peace treaty. He wanted revolution. He wanted to defeat the North. When Garland said yesterday that today is more dangerous, what happened on January 6th is more dangerous than Oklahoma City, That should be a wake-up call to people. Here he is.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I certainly agree that we are facing a more dangerous period than we faced in Oklahoma City at that time. From what I have seen, and I have no inside information about how the department is developing its work, it looks like an extremely aggressive and perfectly appropriate beginning to an investigation all across the country in the same way our original Oklahoma City investigation was, but many times more. I don't yet know what additional resources would be required by the department. I can assure you that this will be my first priority and my first briefing when I return to the department if I'm confirmed.
Do you hear his priority? They have yet to define right-wing extremism. They have labeled them terrorists. Now, if it's a bunch of Nazis, well, let's look at the Nazis. This is highly controversial and a horrible thing to say, but I'm an American and I believe in the First Amendment. If these Nazis are sitting around with a book reading party and they're just talking about how great National Socialism is, I'm sorry, gang, but they have to be allowed to do that. I hate it. I wish those people would go someplace else. I wish that they would wake up to what the reality is, that Nazism and National Socialism is evil. But as long as they're not planning anything, as long as they're not working towards the destruction of the United States in the way that Antifa does, you got to leave them alone. People believe weird things. People believe dangerous things. But unless they are a danger, they're not a terrorist, and they're not something that the FBI should or could do anything about. If there are Nazis or any kind of white supremacists, the Klan, which was an arm of the Democratic Party, the Klan, and they are holding their little meetings. I absolutely hate it. I hate it. But as long as they are not hurting people, using their power to intimidate, which is the reason why they have the hood, so it's a hard one to make a case that they're not trying to intimidate and scare people. They are using, that is an act of terror by using violence or trying to use words that imply violence to scare people into changing their way of life. That is terrorism. If the Black Panthers are not doing anything violent, the Black Panthers should exist. If there's an appetite for a group of people that want to do that, if Antifa wants to talk about fascism, even in the way that they do, where they are truly fascists, it's either my way or I burn it down, even if they want to just talk about fascism in that way and go out in the public square and have signs and have rallies and say, hey, this is what we're all about, that's fine. They have to be left alone. But the minute they start trying to bomb or burn down a federal building or a police station, the minute they start beating people in the streets that won't comply, they've crossed a line. Just like the Klan would, just like white supremacist Nazis would. But here's the problem. He's not talking about the violence that happened over the summer. He is only talking about right-wing extremism and white supremacists. I am all for justice. I am all for making sure we catch the bad guys, as long as the bad guys are not defined to be on only one side. Merrick Garland said yesterday that that there was no comparison between what happened on January 6th and what happened over the summer. That is because the Washington elites see themselves as better than somebody who owns a taco stand. I don't. The Constitution doesn't. They are the same crime.